Okay, hey guys, what's going on? It's Chris here, the author of the Vengeance series over at vengeancebooks.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at some leftover notes from my recently released book, The Garden. If you haven't read the book, then don't watch this video. Simple as that. There is a big chunk of notes here at the beginning that I'm going to skip over first because I'll pause that so you can read it because it's a lot to read out if you're interested. It's just basically a whole section of stuff, like a whole sequence of blueprint things that I was going to use and then ended up just cutting. So you have this part right here. Go ahead and you can pause and read all that right there. And then you also have the rest, which is right here. If you want to pause and read those, that is a whole bunch of stuff that I just didn't cut or I repurposed. So getting that out of the way, let's go ahead and read through some of these notes. And again, this is, if you haven't seen these videos before, these are in a completely like random note order. Some of the stuff might have been used. Some of it was just like me writing down random ideas in my phone that I maybe wouldn't have ever fit, but I thought that might be kind of cool. And a lot of it's just interactions, places for them to go and whatever have you. So first, Kim reiterates to Tansu that her dad didn't have a funeral for her mom. Her remains were sent home to her family that she never met and didn't know, which, you know, her mom's family is basically her parents and grandmother, cousins, and stuff like that. He never talked to Kim about it and got mad if he brought her mom up. One day I went to bed and never saw my mom again. It was just like a little conversation they were going to be having. And again, with all this, if it's not in the books, it's not officially canon. So anything I say here, you know, maybe they did have a funeral for her mom or something, and I'll write that later because it works. If I didn't say it in the books, then it's not canon. So take everything here for, yeah. I was thinking about having them visit Kim's grave and have them be like, this is weird. And yeah, but this just kind of seemed unnecessary. Like, we know, we've already been to the grave a couple times. Kim sees a visual of Tansu with some of her old friends, faceless. She's laughing and has longer hair at the time. Kim says, "This isn't mine," talking like the memory or the dream. Then one of the shapes fades into Tansu's visage, so Kim pulls back. Kim pulls back, knowing she shouldn't snoop. And that was be like a dream sequence, which did kind of get repurposed to one of the ending dream sequences. One of the later dream sequences where Kim's sitting watching her and her friends build a puzzle and stuff. Tatsu says that she wants to see Kim again, like physically see her. Do you think if we tried to switch but held back at the last second, then we could like be in a shared space together? Kim says, I don't know if we should mess with that because at the end of book 2, when they start intermingling, they do share a space while Tansu is like knocked the hell out from being so tired. She's so tired in such a deep sleep, resting, that they actually do share that space. And Kim's like, I don't want to mess with that. Tansu argues, but saying like, oh, but that first time, and then we shared that space, and Kim says, yeah, but that's probably because you were soul separated. That's probably because your soul separated to find me. When you returned to your body with me, you weren't conscious. You were weakened. We shouldn't mess with it. Near the end, after Kim speaks with her mother and nothing is accepted again, the character Nothing, Kim is in the room and turns out the light. She then holds her hand in view, seeing its vague shape in the dark. She then snaps her fingers and creates a purple and blue spark. She does it again and it's brighter, and she smiles, hinting that she has some latent Tuffle ability now, which at this point I can say is canon, but we didn't see that yet. And we'll see something like that. Don't worry, little teasers. But Tansu's cat is in Kim's room at one point, like actually walking around in Kim's chamber, and Kim asks about it. Tansu explains they didn't keep the cat long once her mom developed an allergy to it. But I just didn't want to have a lot of that stuff invading Kim's space because that was kind of like her safe, contained, trusted space that like, I mean, it did get invaded at times with different ways, but I didn't want it to have like Tansu wasn't able to kind of cross over with her spirit stuff. Sorry, this is the first time I've spoken today, so I'm a little bit blah. The book ends with them. Oh yeah, this is an idea. I had a bunch of different ideas how I wanted to end it. So one of the endings was that they're packing and getting in the car to go away for a week. There's a hotel booked, and they have every day for a week planned. Like we just need to, after everything gets situated, like we need to just get out of the house for a little bit. Let's just go somewhere different because everyone's still so pent up and anxious. Kim in a room full of mirrors mounted to the walls, ceilings, floor, car mirrors, hand mirrors, vanity mirrors, every mirror reflecting nothing and all out of focus. Nothing as in like absolutely nothing, not the character. Until she touches one and she gets some like audible feedback. So just different ways that Kim would experience strange oddities, and because mirrors are such a prominent thing in her life, which I did use. I used the locker door mirror in the hallway. Yeah, I wanted to have just like she's in a room that's just mirrors that don't reflect anything, and it's like, what the fuck? Kim reveals that she had a lot of toys and stuffed animals, but she threw them away because of a need to grow up or something stupid. Or Stacy made fun of her so badly that when she brought her a comfort stuffed otter named Cece, which actually was a stuffed otter toy that I had when I was a kid. It was named CC, and I think my mom made it, or it was my mom's, and one day it just disappeared. I have no idea where that went. I think it went down to the basement at one point, and I never saw it again. So I've had a stuffed otter named Cece. Maybe she brought it to school, and Stacy made fun of her so bad that she threw all of her toys away or something. Kim was made to feel childish and all that and threw her toys away, or had her toys broken or stolen in the daycare when she was a kid. Her dad threw them away and used them as bargaining chips, so Kim eventually just did away with them. All these different ideas of why she doesn't have any of those childhood toys again. She never expressed her interest because they would always be used as a weapon. Actually, it wasn't Stacy. It was another girl named something, and some of the boys had made fun of her toys and stuffed animals and interests. So, like, I was trying to, like, she had all these toys as a kid, a lot of, like, individuality expressions, and for some reason, one way or another, just made her feel childish, or it was always used as a bargaining chip against her, so she just got rid of everything and whatever. So that's why I was trying to have, like, more reasons of why in book one and stuff we didn't see Kim with like that many things in her room. She didn't have a lot of stuff, and there wasn't a lot of shit anywhere. And like, yeah, when she was in daycare, you know, after Rachel's passing and they stopped doing the daycare, a lot of that, like the toys for the kids to play with and stuff, was just sold or thrown away. And a lot of stuff that belonged to Kim also got thrown away in that process. And whatever she was left with was like, would be used from her dad to like threaten her with it, like, if you don't fucking do this, I'll throw this away, or like whatever have you. So that in my head is canon, but all these other little ideas are just different ways that could have happened if I wrote it. Every time she tried to connect, they would let her insert herself and feel comfortable just to shut her down and turn her away, or the ditch ghost convinced her to get rid of them and play with the ghosts instead. So that's part of the same paragraph. Another idea of something interesting is Tansu finds a vial or something with a note on her inner windowsill from Magcrow. It's a Hebaloma brew that should help Kim acclimate, potentially being a hallucination on Kim's part. Just early ideas of like, I still want to show the reader that Magcrow is still like a piece on the board somehow, but this didn't end up going anywhere because with what we see in the epilogue that Magcrow is dealing with. And now in the epilogue, we don't know how long it's been since the end of book 2 and where he ends up being. I don't have an exact number for that, but it has been like, say, a couple months. So he, in that my head canon, which is technically canon, but it's not on page, so it's not yet. But to me, Magcrow has been checking in on them every day, has been camping out nearby so he can, because he's still nervous that something is around, something's going to show up, and he knows that there's shit going on when it comes to like underworld stuff. So he's still, because they're two souls in one body, it's a strange oddity that some collectors might be interested in, so he's still watching out, protecting them. And also, he doesn't have a lot of purpose in his life besides, you know, archiving and compiling all of Sin stuff and collecting it all and making it all safe and out of reach. And so outside of that, when he has his free time, he's just kind of checking on them, and he's still trying to feel, he has nobody in his life anymore. He's lonely. He has lost Chrism. He doesn't have Ken. He doesn't have Alice. He doesn't have Kim and Tansu. So he's just like floating. He's coasting. Tansu is going through laundry. One of Kim's shirts is there, long sleeve two-tone, red torso, black sleeves is the shirt, and that's mixed into the laundry. She puts it on. Tansu's in the room and asks Kim what she should do with her clothes and bag and backpack and everything. Kim says, move it out of the way. In fact, take the bed downstairs. I feel terrible. Your mom spent all that money. Tansu says, not like we could have predicted any of this. Kim says, I won't be upset. Tansu says, but if I do that, it's like you don't live here. It's like I'm burying you again in a way. Kim says, don't be silly. I appreciate it, but seriously, you can put my stuff away. Tatsu hesitates and says, "Not today. I want to pretend you're asleep next to me still." But she does clean some of the stuff up, so Tatsu packs things, and we get to see Kim's bag, how she left it, and the bracelet on the nightstand, and Tatsu puts on the bracelet as well. The bracelet that Joey gifted Kim on her first Christmas at Tatsu's house, or first birthday, rather. They go for a walk alone. After Joey and Stacy talk, Kim and Tansu would go for a walk alone. Tansu says how she wants to be alone, and Kim says, "Okay, I'll let you enjoy your walk." And Tansu says, "No, I mean alone with you." Kim blushes and says, "Oh, is that because you can't be alone with anyone else?" And Tansu says, "No, I just really want to enjoy the time with you." Kim says, "Last time we went for a walk, I died." Tansu says, "Well, I expect you to not die this time." And Kim laughs and says, "Wow, you're cracking jokes." Says your morbid sense of humor is infectious. Tansu also says it'll be good for her to do more than just sit in a chair and talk and be sad. Actually moving around will help. They go for the walk and just enjoy the quiet, and they don't talk a lot. You said you used to walk this road all the time, and I want you to be able to enjoy that, so Tansu sits down and lets Kim take over. This is a lot of when I was trying to figure out Nothing's role in the story, and this is all the conceptual phase before I even got close to figuring it all out. This is me like at work, feverishly thinking like, oh, I have an idea. So I'll read through this, and it goes down to here just because I want to be able to give context if anything pops up. Again, this is before I had any idea of what I was going to do with that, and this is like first idea, so I have no idea what this is going to say. Nothing was buried behind walls of psychological scar tissue. Being in the ditch, the creature inside convinced her through torture and delusions to sever their bond, which made her weaker. Kim gave in during her first torture after a long time, dying on the field waiting for Tansu. The loneliness crushing, she cast nothing aside without fully understanding what she was doing in the hopes of freedom, but was moved to a new layer of hell. Now, when Nothing is trying to reach Kim, the signal is weak and distorted by Kim's own instilled distrust. The lie she was made to believe that they were still one, that the only safe place is this room. But by sleeping, a lot of those defenses are thinned, and they are as close as they can be, but her own toxic mind creates hallucinations around the attempted contact. I want the end few chapters to be Kim going on a deep dive into her subconscious, confronting the illusion set in place by Nothing until she uncovers what is hidden. Chapter confronting Nothing for the final time is called Ablution. Which is like washing clean kind of thing. She is faced with malicious beings, distorted figures, things that cling to her mind and terrify her by having her dad and Tuffle attack her. She succumbs to the dark thoughts until she wakes up in the coffin. Pounding on the lid, she's freaking out. She knows she's awake and tries to switch her view to Tansu. Shouts Poughkeepsie till her throat gives out, but nothing happens. She almost convinces herself that this was all fake. Another layer of the ditch. She starts crying until the coffin gets bigger. No, she's getting smaller, body becoming thin, voice higher pitched and crackling. She rolls her head to the left and is met by these dead purple eyes. Face to face, the little girl exhales and says, "You left me there, drowning." The girl vanishes and Kim hears a cracking. Suddenly, the coffin gives in and dirt falls. Suffocating, light dimming, the weight is too much. Suddenly, she lurches upright and gasps for air. She's sitting on her bed. The little girl sitting at the foot, facing away, with her knees raised. They talk, and Kim understands that it's Nothing. And then Nothing declares her name to be Kiki. Always has been. She turns, and Kim sees the light that she has in her face, the face of herself as a child. Damaged and forgotten. Kim asks why she's doing this, torturing her. "We became one. I accepted you." Kiki says, "We were torn apart and you abandoned me in there." Cold. It ends with Kiki saying Kim has to accept her again, which means she has to remember. Kim says, "I already remember my time in there," but she argues, "No, you don't. Only the surface." Kiki fully faces her and holds out the unicorn head. When the two pieces are joined, Kim is moved to a different room, one where she collapses to the floor, screaming in agony. Her head feeling like it's going to explode, scorned by biting memories, reliving the horrors overlapped hell. As it reaches the most painful, she feels something touch her, a ping of every sense going into overdrive, then slowly simmering. Dropping from 1,000 to 0 over time, everything is flashing with blood and murky water. She can't focus, but there's someone in front of her. She's begging to make it stop, begging, "Please make it stop." Then a hushed voice dispels the screams, and ringing, everything goes mute, ears stuffed with cotton as a quell washes over her. Her body drains, this black ooze to the floor, and she feels a weight lift. Her vision starts to come back as she sees a Christmas tree, ignited with bright reds and greens. Lightheaded, she falls back and lands on the couch, mouth agape and eyes wide with tears streaming. The room came into view. It was her living room, no lights on except the tree. This was different than she remembered. Smaller. Her eyes darted around, conscious almost lost, but clung to life like a raft. But clung to like a life raft. Sorry, I read that backwards. Her head rested on her leg, and she was leaning hard into the couch back. Warmth, she was holding the unicorn complete. The quiet overpowered the torment, and all that she could hear was the low buzz of Christmas lights, a whisper, Kiki. Ice cold all at once, her body flooded with goosebumps, and her eyes burned, jaw quivering, lips curled, and her expression developed into that of a sobbing child. She turned to her right and saw her mother sitting on the couch beside her. Hardly able to speak, she croaked, Mama. More details and they talk about her time in the ditch, confirm that it is truly her, in a way, a piece of her soul, taken upon my death by the girl, Chrism, and passed along to you. She kept it safe, it kept her sane, but after they talk, Kim is faced again with nothing and gives her a hug, accepting her once again, splitting the suffering. Nothing then exists in her room alongside her, less emaciated and clean, but retaining her purple eyes. She spends her time sitting cross-legged on the floor and staring out the window, now that that now shows the actual day-night cycle. So, with all of that, a lot of that is kind of the general gist. I had trouble figuring out if I wanted to have her see Rachel first and then nothing, if I wanted nothing, then Rachel, or if I wanted to even include Rachel at all. There was a point where I was just like, I'm not going to include that. I just want it to be nothing. I don't want to overcomplicate it. I don't want to insert a lore that doesn't technically make sense, where I was trying to figure out, well, why is Rachel there? It can't just be a memory. I want it to actually be her in a way. And then I thought, well, maybe when Chrism killed Rachel at the end of Transgression and during her time Devil to the Damned, when she kills Rachel, maybe she accidentally took a piece of Rachel's soul, was holding on to it, and then passed it along to Kim in a sense. And I couldn't quite figure out how I wanted to include Rachel in a way that made sense. And I also didn't know if I wanted to have her talk to Rachel, where that scene would be. And I thought, yeah, in front of the Christmas tree, because that was like one of the last times she saw her mom, and I really liked that. I like that scene in my head. It looks cool, it's ethereal, but at the same time, I wanted to break it away from that and be like, oh, not everything is taking place in her house. And a lot of times the reason why I had a lot of these supernatural scenes take place in Kim's house, in or around it, is because that was a limited scope of her world. After her mom died, she spent 70% of her time out of school in her house, and then 20% of it outside the house in the woods, and 10% anywhere else. Like her house was her entire world after her mom died, basically. So it would make sense that a lot of her memories and thoughts would default to her house, which is fine, but in a writing standpoint, that just gets repetitive and kind of boring unless it's explicitly stated why. But even if you give it a reason, it still just seems lazy. So I wanted to actually have her meet with Rachel in that field, because we've seen that field before, and this is me connecting it to previous parts of the books, and then adding credence to how it is actually Rachel and what form she spiritually takes and why she's in this location. Because in book 1, we do see Kim in a dream in this very field, as she sees like storm clouds approaching, and then she like goes into a house that's in there, and the house isn't part of this field. That's something that she constructed to make herself feel safe. And it isn't a house that matters, but it's kind of that house in book 1. If you remember, it's like one single scene, but that house is kind of constructed of the leftover spiritual essence of different memories of kids in the ditch that Kim is connected to. So she finds that to be a safe place because it's built by the spirits that made her feel safe in her youth, if that makes sense. So and it's built by those beings from fragments of their own memories kind of colliding and all forming like a little nest of protection. So and Kim is in that field in book 1 in the dream and sees the storm clouds approach, because it's like it's a space that she doesn't understand and she can't interpret, even though her mom's spirit is still technically there and watching her. she can't comprehend what the odd feeling is in the dream, so she psychologically creates that storm to keep herself away from it and then keeps her in a safe place. So, yeah, that field is that same field, just in a different form. Anyway, that was a lot there. And here's some more stuff about nothing. Me trying to figure out how she would appear and how a lot of the stuff would still go. So I might repeat myself here. What if nothing is beaten to hell, too? Even more shriveled and scarred. Nothing remembers what Kim forgot from the ditch. It was keeping the unicorn safe for her. It pulls it free from a hole in her chest, a hole that has black sewn threads strung over the hole, not pulling it shut but keeping it partially concealed. When Kim is talking to Nothing, Nothing starts to cry and de-age until she is just a little girl. Little Kim with longer hair and her face saturated in tears. Kim can feel the radiating hatred and confusion, the inward despise. She bends down to one knee and gives her a hug, says, "I'm sorry, I love you." Nothing's hair is wet, matted to her face, her clothes tight to her skeletal frame. She's emitting a broken sound from her skin, a melody similar to that of the music box, something deep and buried from her childhood. I remember finding a box, or this is from her perspective, I remember finding a box in a secondhand store while coming back from our first and only visit to the ocean. I found a music box with a wooden carved unicorn inside that rotated as the song played. I completely forgot about this. What relevance does it have with her? It doesn't matter, not anymore. Then here we're getting to some Joey stuff. There's a lot of stuff I wanted to have Joey and Kim talk over. This is just kind of giving the theme of like how they both differ from Joey and Stacy's conversation. So Joey's focused on asking questions, stuff about her dad and what she has to deal with after, how much Tansu knew about it, basically like how much was everyone lying to me. Meanwhile, Stacy has more concern about repairing their issues and doesn't ask a lot about the demon stuff except for a little. Each of these comes to a partial resolution with Tansu later in the day, where they round things out to pertain to that subject each time. Ignore the spelling errors. It's me quickly typing on my phone with wet hands while I'm at work, and I don't go back and spell check my notes. So, and I just copy and paste these directly from my phone to an email and then copy and paste it to a document. Joey's focused on asking questions, stuff about, oh, that's just an accidental copy of that. Whoops. 2. Joey asked why Kim didn't come to him about the stuff. Instead, she grew closer to Tansu and pushed him away. Kim argues, until I didn't. I was hidden from all of this, and I took advantage of that to reclaim my old life, to fix it. Joey says, you did. But before that, you confessed in Tansu, or confided. I think it's confided in Tansu and not me. Did you not trust me? Did I do something to become unworthy in your eyes? Kim says no. And Tansu, don't take this wrong way, but I had a lot less to lose. You're always back and forth with me, and part of me thought telling you the truth would finally drive you away for good. But another part figured that by getting you invested in this would make you a target. At least with Tansu, I knew I'd be around to protect her, and besides, I didn't choose to tell her. I didn't have a choice but to reveal everything. Kim says revenge cost me everything and more. And yeah, I mean, like a lot of that, just it was kind of representative. Joey's character was always representative of a past that she selfishly can't let go of, but at the same time doesn't want anything to do with. But without it, like Joey is the life raft to a happy time in her life that she doesn't want to release, but is kind of objectifying him in that way and feels guilt over keeping him around but still treating him like shit because she knows she can't get closer to him because of her own confused emotions. And Tansu is like new. There's no previous ties to Tansu, so she feels like a fresh slate with her. So anyway, yeah. More epilogue ideas. Maybe we end on an epilogue seeing Mad Crow wounded and standing above a dead acolyte. And the suicidal, this is a different kid, the suicidal Tiffle kid is near him making sure he's okay, which we get the explanation later that the acolytes came after them because they're demonic. He had to fight one in self-defense and didn't mean to kill it. His rage got the better of him and he had to go into hiding. The suicide Tiffle kid is, I think I've talked about it at one point, one where a kid makes a deal, kills his sister and his brother and his mom or something like that, and ends up just trying to take his own life, and the Tuffle is so sadistic it lets him like almost bleed out from, trigger warning, sorry, from like cutting himself, and he lets him almost bleed out all the time, and like just about to snuff into the darkness, and then starts going into overdrive healing him, and then the kid's like, fucking hell, just let me die, and the kid like wanders into traffic, but the Tuffle like takes over him to like get him away from the car. Kid tries to like get himself to jump off a roof, but he isn't able to because the Tuffle takes over his muscles, and but then, Mad Crow finds him after, when the kid is like on the verge of death for the last time. The Tuffle's like holding out to repair him, but then Sin dies, so the Tuffle like loses his power and basically fades away very quickly. And the kid's like, oh fuck, I can finally die, but now I don't want to because the demon's gone. I want to live, and realizes he wants to live now. And Mad Crow is able to find him as Mad Crow's doing like a search for Tuffle that might still be alive. Finds him, recruits him, and they're working together. But that's not what happened. Should we have Mad Crow meet with everyone? Maybe not, because I like the idea of them just being left alone. Maybe not, because I like the idea of them just being left alone. However, having Kim meet him and get the answer that they don't know what's going on with Alice is good too. What if they're passing by Kim's old home and they see someone standing in the driveway when they go on a walk, facing the wreckage? They approach, and when he turns around, they see a broken teen boy. They ask who he is, and he answers, and they see his hand sticking out of his long-sleeve shirt, and he has scars in his fingers and is missing a few. Kim is on edge because she senses something off. He looks so lost and sad and confused. Kim switches when he gets somewhat hostile, and they learn his Tuffle brought him here in search of the leak to stay alive, but then the Tuffle died almost an hour ago. That Tuffle died almost an hour ago, and he's just been standing here trying to figure out what to do. That's when Mad Crow shows up and basically takes the kid away. And I had all these different ideas of how I wanted to like reintroduce Mad Crow being around, reintroduce the idea that there are still Tuffle kids that were affected by all this and are still around, so it doesn't feel like it all just got washed away, because it didn't. But they're limited. We're limiting the view of the world to just these characters. So that all that stuff is still true, but I also didn't want to include all that stuff because I really just wanted to focus on these characters and what they're going through instead of complicating the plot, introducing a bunch of new questions with Mad Crow coming into the picture or other kids coming into the picture. I didn't want to have to do all that. I just wanted to focus on what was going on with our main characters and resolve this stuff instead of burdening the reader's mind and the character's mind with all this other what if stuff. Nothing peels her own head down the middle to reveal a wind chime and lets it close and giggles. Now, I have not yet indicated what the significance of the wind chime is. I know what it is, and that's going to be a small part of book 3. It's nothing giant and crazy, but like it does have a purpose because it does show up all the time, and I still want to keep alluding to it. I don't know if I did use the wind chime in this book at all. I don't think I did. I guess we're just going to read it because this is the last part of these notes. Joey conversation chapter ending. Tansu asks to be let out. It's getting cold. I can't breathe. This is where Tansu's, Kim's taken over and Tansu is in her chamber. Kim says, okay, just let me say goodbye. But Tansu screams and Kim's vision goes black. So this is where, like, at the end of the Joey conversation, so this is at the end of their conversation where they're going to be switching back. So in a painful instant, Kim wakes up on the floor, back against the wall, under the window, and groggy as hell. So still in the real world. She like blacks out for a second, but she's still in control of her body. I'm sorry. So Tansu wakes up in a painful instant. She wakes up on the floor with her back against the wall under the window and groggy as hell. Kim shouts her name, which wakes Tansu up. Tansu's lying on her face on the table and sits up forcefully. So Kim is leaning against the window in her room, groggy as hell. And Tansu is fallen forward on the table. Okay. Joey is standing up at her side, a hand on her shoulder, and asks what happened, and Tansu says that she got scared. She kept seeing bad things, dark things, thunder, the rain, the ocean. It hurt to breathe. Kim says something to comfort her, and Tansu says, where were you? I've been yelling for you. Kim says she didn't hear anything. A sudden sharp pain in Kim's chest caused me to look inwards. Spiritually, Tansu was sitting tight to herself and shivering. She was huffing, skin knotted and thin, while fear and discomfort radiated off her. An illusion. I projected my voice, but there was no ripple of noise. Joey spoke, clawing me back to this world. Man, it's really coming down out there. I didn't know it was supposed to get this bad. His voice chittered and bounced, making me lightheaded. You're not walking home, are you? My spirit swayed back and forth, one eye here and the other, watching Tansu shake. The sensation came out of nowhere. Terror. I felt her name in my throat, lathered with concern, but nothing left my lips cold. He tapped the table. Yo. The 30 seconds I was idle sped past me, and I rejoined the present. I locked onto him, and my eyes flickered. More thunder, cracks, and Kim fully faces the door. Now it's a torrent of rain. Her eyes are wide, blue flickering. Joey, unsuspecting at first stress, says, boy, it's really coming down out there. That was so sudden. When she doesn't respond, he says, hey, are you okay? Then touches her hand. She pulls back, and her eyes instantly revert to green, and Tonto flops forward. Okay, so real quick, I just basically repeated the scenes. This is disorganized notes. There should be spaces between this. So basically, like, this was me. How do I explain this? So this is me starting to write based on the notes I took here. So these are the notes that I take as the blueprint and that are ahead of my writing. So I reference, so I know where I'm going while I'm writing. Okay. This is me starting that writing and chipping away at the notes that are ahead of me, but then I stopped that writing and decided this is not where I was going to go with it, so I just copied all that whole chunk of half-written stuff and threw it into my notes and did something different. So that's why this is like overlapping, because this is like the cleaned up version of me doing this kind of thing. So I'm not going to read through all this because it is a mess at this point, so if you guys want to pause where I was, which is like right here, pause and then read through that if you want, go ahead, and then we'll fast forward, and then you can pause and read through this as well, because that's just that continuing. And this is a whole sequence of like where Kim ends up being. So I'm not going to read through all this because that is just messy note taking, but if you do want to read that to see where the blueprints were, you can. Then we have another note here, the final notes, which is, I believe, where Kim is fighting Lyomik. So maybe the room changes around them again as she's fighting. Now she's being forced over the edge of the broken railing, which we do see. Standing just outside of her bedroom, Lyomik notices this and seems confused but continues. Says, this is how it always ends. You should know this by now. You try and try again, hinting that Kim's spirit has been here before. How many creative ways can you succumb? Kim uses some saliva pooled in her mouth to spit into her face, causing her to flinch just the slightest amount and giving her an opening to sweep the leg out from under her. They both fall over the railing to the ground below and land on broken pieces of the railing. Lyomik gets stabbed by some wood, and Kim mostly has some nails in her arm and side. Lyomik ferociously snarls like an animal, rolling on the floor as if being electrocuted, her voice warbling and jumping between high and low pitches. Kim takes this opportunity to look around, and she sees the door to her dad's room. Draw in, I don't know what that is. She drags herself into the room. I think it's supposed to be crawling. She drags herself into the room, managing to pick herself up and try to sprint, but falling into the dark. Falling into the nightstand. It crumbles from rot, and she numbly lingers, heart beating so hard in her ears and vision dark. Pulsing colors in her eyes, she looks over her shoulder, and Lyomik is standing there like a beastly thing, basted in some violet filter, and peering hungrily through her disheveled bangs. Huffing, a stalemate, Kim rolls onto her tailbone and backs against the wall. Her hand rested on something cold, something that her grip naturally acclimated to the shape of. A pause, deliberate and daunting. Then Lyomik lunges with a belly screech, and Kim raises the item from the floor, the trigger aligned with her finger, both hands clasped, and the barrel straight. The gunshot rings out, and Lyomik gets flung back, hitting the floor with a wet gurgle as the blood freezes in the air. Kim gets up, shorter than before, arms hardly able to hold the weight of her dad's .38 caliber. Her hands were almost too small. Shaking, she walks over and aims the gun. Lyomik gives a maddened expression and opens her mouth to speak, but Kim starts breaking down and screams at the top of her lungs and unloads the rest of the ammo until it clicks. Crying, just a child, she collapses. So, this was the scene that I wanted to use, but at this point, by the time she faces Lyomik, she had already fought Destro and already had that moment where she was being drowned in the water in the hallway and grabs the broken shard of the mirror out of desperation and stabs him in the neck or cuts his throat, whatever she does. So this would have been 2 times in a row where she had her back against the wall and desperately reaches for something and basically lucks out with a weapon that gets her out of the situation. So as much as I wanted to do this, for it to be representative of the moment she had the gun in the first book, where she was aiming it at nothing and was like almost going to shoot the gun but doesn't, and then finding the bullet in her room and during this book and all this stuff, it just didn't work, obviously, because it was just repetitive at that point, so I didn't use it. So the last note I have in here says Kim is so drained and her head is buzzing. She can feel the world shifting around her, the polarity inverted. She is walking, hardly able to stand, toward the door leading out of his room. This is continuing from that scene. It's a lot further than it should be. She can see lights, green, blue, and red. The sound of holiday cartoons and broken sobs strips the paint from the walls. Someone was there, silhouetted and sitting on the floor. Couldn't tell if they were facing me or not. She gets closer and starts to make out the face. It's me again, older and thin, tired, a husk. The me who entered this place only a short time ago. So that is a lot of the unused notes. This isn't all of them, but this is many of the unused notes I had for The Garden. I hope you guys enjoy that. I will have some more bonus content, maybe for The Garden. I have to see what else I have. But if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.